Fight fans, welcome to the PBC Podcast, brought to you by Premier Boxing Champions with your host, Kenneth Bouhairie and Michael Rosenthal.
Welcome everyone to the PBC Podcast. I'm Kenneth Bouhairie.
And I'm Michael Rosenthal, editor of USA Today's Boxing Junkie.
We want to thank you guys as always for tuning in. Joining us this week is trainer Ronnie Shields. Plus, in this week's toe-to-toe, Mike and I will list the 5 greatest upsets in PBC history. And speaking of great upsets, let's jump right into the week in review. Last Saturday, PBC on Showtime returned with a triple header at Dignity Health Sports Park in Carson, California. In the main event, Brian Mendoza turned the boxing world upside down with a highlight reel 7th round knockout of the previously unbeaten Sebastian Fundora. Mike, what were your thoughts when Fundora was knocked out?
I was pretty stunned, as I'm guessing pretty much everybody was who was watching that. I thought Fundora was in control of the fight. You know, he'd taken some good shots from Mendoza, mostly right hands. Then, bam, that left hook buckled his knees, and the right-left combination took him out. It's pretty brutal. The hook sort of paralyzed Fundora and made him helpless, which was kind of hard to watch. I don't like seeing any fighter in that position. Anyway, it was a crazy knockout. Definitely a knockout of the year candidate.
Yeah, I agree. And it seemed like it came out of nowhere. I was stunned too. I did not see this coming at all. Now, leading up to the fight, I gave Mendoza a great shot to win. I loved what I saw for him when he knocked out Jason Rosario last November. And as I said last week, I believed this was a 50-50 fight. But, you know, the way the fight was going, no, I definitely did not expect this. How did Fundora look to you leading up to that ending?
I thought he looked really good. He was jabbing often and well, which made it difficult for Mendoza to get inside at times. And when he did get close, Fundora got the better of the exchanges, you know, which he somehow manages to do against most guys, you know, in spite of his height. The judges saw it like I did. I think Mendoza won 1 round on 1 card through 6 rounds. Fundora was definitely, you know, nearly pitching a shutout. Then he just got caught. You know, that was just a tremendous left hook. I think it would have hurt pretty much anyone.
Yeah. And, you know, I agree with you. I thought Fundora was breaking him down and perhaps, you know, closing in on a stoppage win. You know, he was blooding him up. It was that Fundora punch output that we're used to seeing. And it just seemed like he was wearing him down. And then, boom, just like that, huge KO loss. How does he bounce back from this?
I really believe it's what I said it was, just a matter of getting caught with a big shot. You know, the unfortunate thing for him is that he was on the verge of getting a title shot. You know, that's gone for now. I think he'll be fine, though. I think he'll go back to the gym, try to make some corrections. You know, he threw a left uppercut from too far away, like right before he got caught, so he made a mistake. You know, and then I think he'll put the setback behind him. It's not always easy to bounce back from something like that, but I think he will. I love the way he handled it afterward. You know, it's no excuses. You know, it's just like stuff happens in boxing. He gets that from his dad, who I'm really impressed with. So that's a good first step. You know, just no excuses. It happened. Let's move forward.
Yeah, he was a mention. I think that, you know, look, he was in complete control of the fight. So still a lot there to work with. What would you suggest he do next?
Well, I think he's going to have to take some time off after that kind of knockout, but he should get back to work ASAP. And I think he should probably fight again ASAP, which is another step in putting something like that behind you. Maybe he fights late in the year. I think after a knockout like that, you're not allowed to fight over some extended period. I forget what it is at the moment. Yeah, but anyway, he'll probably be back late in the year. I'd probably target a second-tier guy, and you're not a contender. He's only 25 years old. He has time to climb back up the ladder toward a title shot, even after something like that.
Now, what is your take on Mendoza, given what he's accomplished in his last 2 fights?
So the story just keeps getting better. You know, he rebounded from 2 losses in 3 fights to stop Jason Rosario, which was just a huge breakthrough for him. You know, and now the spectacular knockout of Fundora, you know, on national, international TV. Everybody loves a rags to riches story, and then this is definitely one of those. And I don't think it was a fluke. He was losing the fight on Saturday, but he kept coming. He never panicked. Did land some hard shots along the way, as I mentioned, and then he just landed the big shot. I wouldn't worry too much about being behind on the cards if I were him. Fundora is just a really, really tough challenge for so many reasons. And I'll say this, Mendoza has some crazy power. To stop Rosario and especially Fundora in back-to-back fights is really something. Can Mendoza beat Jermall Charlo or Tim Tszyu? I don't know. At the same time, I think Mendoza has taught us to never write him off. I think with him, anything's possible.
Yeah, never been dropped before, I believe, too. So I love that Tim Tszyu match, a battle of explosive power punchers. Who would you like to see him face next?
Well, as a fan, which is always my first thought, I'd love to see him take another step up immediately. Now, that means a shot at Charlo or Tszyu, but I don't think that's in the cards, at least not right away. Mendoza does have other good possible opponents, though, a lot of them. How about Mendoza versus Danny Garcia? That would be that'd be a good fight for both guys, I think. Now that Mendoza's made a name for himself, I thought of Erickson Lubin, who wants to write his own comeback story.
Yeah, that's a good fight.
What about Jesus Ramos?
I like that one.
Two hot guys. That would be a good step up for Ramos and another chance for Mendoza to prove he's for real. Brian Castano is another guy that jumped into my head. I hope Mendoza gets a fight against opponents like that, like the guys I just mentioned, because he's earned it.
He's earned it.
Yeah, we want, and everybody wants to see what he's capable of doing.
Yeah, exactly. Now, if I were him, I take BPA, best player available, best fighter available. And certainly he has earned it. Those are two really, really impressive victories. Now, in the co-main event, unbeaten 140-pound contender Brandon Lee grinded out a 10-round unanimous decision over his toughest test to date in veteran Pedro Campa. Scorecards read 99-91, 98-92, and 97-93. But Mike, a lot of folks thought those scores didn't necessarily reflect the action in the ring.
Way too wide, in my opinion. The 99-91 score was, I just have to say, it was disgraceful. Campa, that guy fought He fought his heart out. Arguably should have won the fight. Only to have a judge like that, get it just completely wrong. I guess this is not an objective thing. It's a subjective thing. So she saw what she saw, I guess. But 99-91 to me just sounds ridiculous. And even the 98-92 score was pretty bad. I thought it was 96-94 either way or a draw, somewhere in there. I think that's what I saw. I think you can argue that Lee landed the bigger, more eye-catching shots, maybe. But Campa was busier, I thought. He also landed a lot of punches. So maybe a draw was the best result in that fight. I don't know.
Yeah, it could have gone either way, as you stated. How about the fight itself? How did you see it? How things sort of played out?
Well, first of all, it was a fight of the year candidate. That was just a crazy brawl. It wasn't artistic, but it was just give and take, fierce. Never really ebbed, never really slowed down. Over 10 rounds, it was just like the whole fight was just nuts. That's the kind of fight that can shorten the careers of both fighters, though. It was fun to watch, but it could shorten the careers of both fighters. Just a crazy fight.
Yeah, and I was glad to see Lee give and take a little bit and show some mettle. He's going to need that at the next level. In your opinion, what should be next for him? Well, actually, before we get to that, I'd like to get your take on how he looked to you, because there have been a lot of differing opinions on social media.
Right. I thought he made it harder on himself than it had to be. It's easier said than done, but he shouldn't have fought He should have fought the entire fight like he fought in the 10th round, in my opinion. Yeah. In the 10th round, he moved, he jabbed, he peppered Campa with power shots here and there. He didn't take a lot of punishment. That's not how he fought most of the fight. He didn't jab enough, which he even said after the fight. Didn't move enough. Didn't clinch inside. Other thing he could have done is when Campa got close, grab him. You don't have to do it like the entire fight, but more than he did. Grab the guy. Because otherwise he's gonna pound you, which is what Campa did at times. Instead, he fought Campa toe-to-toe, which could have ended in a disaster. It's not easy to fight like he did in the 10th round for an entire fight in light of Campa's pressure and the fitness required. But that would have been the best strategy, in my opinion. Listen, he's 23. He's still learning. He's going to learn from that fight, and he'll be better going forward.
Yeah, for sure. And who should be next for him?
I would really take my time with him, especially after what we saw on Saturday. It's pretty clear that he's still developing. I think this is, even more than that, perhaps, is he's still trying to figure out who he is. He's not a boxer, and he probably shouldn't be just a brawler. Now, he'll figure that out. So I'd have him face another second-tier guy, maybe one who isn't quite as aggressive and rugged as Campa, so he can continue to work on his craft. I didn't come up with a specific opponent, just a solid fringe contender kind of guy while he continues to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's still more development needed, and he's still extremely young. So a lot can happen over the next 12 months. In the televised opener, undefeated featherweight Luis Nunez continues to climb the ranks, winning a clear 10-round unanimous decision over Christian Olivo, handing him his first loss. Now, quick note on Prediction League. Mike got off to a hot start this year, but is slowly starting to fade back into the Mike that I know. I am
wait. Where did we go wrong this last week? It was the week before, I think.
Yeah. I think Joey Spencer did you in.
But you picked Plant.
Yes, I did. So it's both of us are 11-4 is where we're at right now.
That's still pretty good.
Yeah. But this is the beginning of the end for you.
Last year. my resume is getting worse.
So we'll see. I plan to take a few more risks in the coming weeks. So we'll see how things go. And with that, it's time to bring in our guest this week, one of the great coaches of our era, the trainer of undefeated WBC middleweight world champion Jermall Charlo, and unbeaten WBA regular 168-pound champion David Morrell. Let's welcome back Ronnie Shields. Ronnie, you're in camp right now with David Morrell. How has camp been?
Camp has been really great, man.
How do you assess Morrell given where he's at in his career with only a handful of fights?
Yeah, you know what, man? It's this kid is so talented that, he's right up there with some of the best guys that I've ever worked with. Huh. He's just, he's just a fun guy to be around. He was always happy. I've never seen this kid down from anything. And it just brings so much joy to the gym. When he comes in, everybody perks up because they know he's coming. And, with the music on, he's dancing, he's having fun, and, he's just enjoying himself. But when it's time to get down to work, boom, there it is. He's ready to work. And, he's just a good guy. He gets along with everybody, and everybody in the gym loves him. And he listens to everything I ask him to do. And, and I told him, he asked me one day, hey, do you mind me, dancing and stuff like that? No, do what you got to do, but just when it's time to work, that's work. So, and he does it. He works really hard. In between the rounds, he's dancing, But then when the bell rings, here we go. He pays attention and he tries everything I ask him to do. So, it just, I just love working with him.
Well, the proof's in the pudding. He seems to, make leaps, in terms of his progress with each fight. When do you expect him to be ready for the top guys in the division, guys Alvarez and Benavidez and those guys?
Well, you know what? I think he's ready now, to tell you the truth. I think, they was talking about that, I think after my first fight with him jumping up. I said, whoa, everybody's jumping too fast right now. No. The kid has a lot of talent, but, he got to get to know who I am. I got to get to know who he is. And I got to, I told him I needed some time, just a couple more fights just to see if he can transition to some other things I want him to do. I say, man, it's just too early right now. After one fight, and all of a sudden, Benavidez and Canelo and this, and But after two more fights, I say, okay, now we're ready. He's ready now. Because he understands me, I understand him. He understands, better about how to approach every fight, and. It was some things like when I first started working with him, when he hurt a guy, he just went all out, and tried to knock him out. And I hate that, because I don't want him to run into something and then, he's sorry about it later. So, but now when he hurts guys, he's taking his time, he's picking his shots, and he's being so smart with everything that he's doing now. And I love that he's picking everything up that I asked him to do. So, so this kid, he's better than anybody now.
If you had your choice, assuming he wins on April 22nd, who would you like to see him face in his next fight?
Well, I would definitely love to see him face Canelo, but I realize that won't happen. And, really and truly, I haven't looked at anybody else. I just been always look at the top to see who's up there.
Yeah.
It's definitely Canelo, Benavidez. That's probably the only two that's left and that's really worth fighting right now. In the 168 pounds.
Now, as a trainer, though, I know you said you feel he's ready, but would you prefer Morrell, continue to develop and get some more fights under his belt?
Well, the thing about it is there's not much left in the division right now because, you really only you got three names at the top right now.
Right.
First is Canelo, then is David Morrell, and then is Benavidez. So, but besides those guys, who else? I don't know who else is there that that really can, pump him up to even more status than where he's at right now. I just don't see nobody else that nobody's talking about.
So there's been a lot of talk, obviously, regarding David Benavidez potentially fighting Canelo Alvarez at some point. How do you see that fight playing out if it happens?
It's a tough fight for both guys. It really is. But I think with Benavidez, he can't have such a slow start against Canelo. And Canelo is not a fast starter either. Right. But he comes out faster than David Benavidez does. If you look at the plan fight, it took Benavidez like 4 rounds to get ready to start getting his game up. And if you do that against a guy like Canelo, that's trouble early, And the thing about Canelo, he is always in shape, so he's ready to go. But I think with Benavidez though, I think his height would bother a guy like Canelo Alvarez because Canelo, he's used to hit guys and boom, and then they gone. But now everybody's standing up to that, and in his loss against Bivol, I think you can see now that people are starting to learn that you have to throw combinations at Canelo, and you punch, you get out, then you come right back. Don't let him get time to set up. And I think Benavidez has the right style for a guy like Canelo, but the thing about Canelo, he can punch. So, and if you get hit with back-to-back shots, then it's going to be tough to come around from that. So Benavidez, I think he would have to have a fast start. But saying that, I don't think Canelo will fight him anyway.
You think too risky for him?
Why not too risky?
I think it is just too risky. Look, he was offered a lot of money to fight, Jermall and then Benavidez, and that was a 2-fight deal that for a lot of money, and he just said no. So that makes you think, whoa, wow, you don't want to do this. Why? He's one of the same guys saying, I want to fight only the best, but obviously he don't.
Now, you would consider Canelo though the top dog at 168 right now?
Well, I think you have to because he's the undisputed champion. Yeah. So he didn't get there because somebody gave it to him. Right. He earned it. He did. He really earned it. Right. But the problem I have with him right now is that he complains about these guys need to fight each other, blah blah blah. But everybody wants to fight for the championship. When he was coming up, he didn't go out and fight Tom, Dick, and Harry to go fight John,
Right.
So, everybody, this is boxing. Everybody wants to fight for the world title. And if you're in position like the number one guy or you're an interim guy or something like that, then you deserve, you deserve to get that fight, just like he did. He didn't go out and fight 1,000 of the best fighters in the world before he fought for the world title, before he fought Mayweather. And then after he fought Mayweather, you know what? He came right back and boom, there he was. He was in line to fight for the title again, and he won it. So I don't understand his reasoning. His reason is to me is that okay, everybody else got to do something different than what he did.
You brought up Jermall Charlo, who looks like he's back in camp. We haven't seen him. We haven't seen him fight in nearly 2 years. How's he been looking in the gym to you?
He's looking great, man. His mind is back, focused again. He's focusing now just on boxing, and that's a good thing. And now he's starting to go to fights. He's coming to the fight next week also, so which is a good thing. And I think, that's what we just needed to get him back, with boxing on his mind, and with the injury, with the divorce, with, fighting for his kids and all this other stuff, now he's kind of put boxing at the forefront again. And everything is coming around. He's in the gym with me every day now, so he's working hard. And all we're waiting on is a date and an opponent.
Ronnie, how far is he away from being where you want him to be after the layoff?
Oh, I think he's just one camp away. That's like between 6 to 8 weeks, and, we've been training good for the last month. And, not every day because I still don't have a date yet, but, that we're looking, they're telling me maybe June is, they're trying to find a date for us in June. So, hopefully, we, in the next maybe 3 to 4 weeks, we start sparring and, we can get in 5 to 6 weeks of sparring. I think that'll be perfect for us. And then, he'll be right back where he needs to be.
So I guess this is the big question. He's been at 160 for so long now, plus you had the layoff. Is he going to come back as a middleweight or a super middleweight?
No, he's going to be a middleweight. He wants to defend his titles.
Okay.
The thing about it is, Jermall, at certain points, he gets really heavy. But right now, he's walking around about 171, 172, which is perfect, I think 12 pounds over the weight, and you're still like a couple months out. I think that's perfect.
Yeah. Is it difficult to regain your previous form when you haven't fought in almost 2 years, or does it depend on the person?
Yeah, it depends on the person. But for Jermall, no, man. Jermall, he gets right back in it right away. It's really easy for him. For the last couple of weeks, I've really been pushing him hard on the hand pads, and you know what? No problems at all. He's been hanging in there with me, and and everything is going great. So I like his attitude right now. I like where he's at mentally, and and now it's just a matter of them saying, okay, this is our date, and this is the guy we're going to fight. So that's all we're waiting on right now.
Do you think he probably needs to get his feet wet a little bit, get maybe a tune-up or mid-tier guy and then, see where he's at?
As a champion of the world, absolutely not. He's the champion of the world. He's going to have to fight somebody in the top 15.
Right.
And so it's going to have to be one of those guys. And, nothing is easy in this sport. People may say, hey, man, this one is easy or that one is easy. No, it's not. Because, mentally you have to be there mentally and you have to be there physically. So, he's been, like I said, he's been working hard for the past month and, getting his weight together and getting his mind together. And, as long as we can stay away from injuries, everything should be good.
I guess the sport's just different now. I mean, guys used to fight more often. Now it's normal that you take long layoffs, and I don't know. It doesn't really seem to affect their performances that much. Does that sound right?
Yeah, absolutely. absolutely. You know, I think it's, you know, it's just how, I think it's just being smart. You know, how you take care of your body, number one. You know, and of course, the eating right and everything also that contributes to, you know, how you take care of your body, but you know, and then it's just the training. You know, if you don't do anything for 2 years, then of course it'll be so hard to come back. But with Jermall, you know, after he fought Montreal, you know, he had to have surgery on his, I think it was just some part of his hand, one of his fingers or something. It was, you know, and he never said anything to anybody about that. But he did. He had surgery on it. And, you know, so he was off for like 5 months with that thing. But, you know, he kept his conditioning up. So then we was going to fight Sulecki. And then, you know, he was running and then he stepped in the hole or something and hurt his back. So, you know, that's just something that, you know, injuries is something that you can't, you know, you don't know when the injury is going to happen.
Right.
But it happened,
Right.
you know. And then he was off for a little while on that. And that concerned me more than anything because I've seen guys that have had the same injury that he had. And man, I've seen guys take forever to come back from that. But the good thing is, you know, he has a real good guy that he works with. Dr. Lou, you know, he's a really good guy, and he knows the body, and he's a really good conditioning guy also. So Jermall has been working with him, and his brother Jermall worked with Dr. Lou also. So, and they've been knowing this guy since they started boxing with me. So and he's a smart guy, and he knows the body really well. So he really helped Jermall come back from that back injury. And so, you know, so Jermall is doing a lot of work with him physically, you know, doing a lot of stuff with him. So, but now, you know, he's feeling great, and he wants to get back in there.
So you've been around the sport so long. Looking at today's fighters, who do you believe would be able, you know, to be at the top of any era? Which guys stand out to you most?
Today, I would say a guy like Devin Haney. I like his style. I think that Devin Haney, you know, he really shows a lot to me, and I think I think he could fight in any era. To tell you the truth, I really believe that, and I think Tank can fight. You know, Gervonta Davis, I think he can fight in any era also. You know, because of his style and because of his power. You know, I think that would really help him in any era. You know, and he seems like he works hard and, you know, always in good shape. So I think he can do that. And I think I'm gonna go down now to look at Bam Rodriguez. Him, the little guy. I think that kid, you know, he could have fought in any era because he's just unbelievable. And I really like the way he fights.
Nice.
And as far as the higher weight classes, I think my guy Morrell, I really think he can fight in any era, you know, because of how smart he is, and you know, and he has power also, and I think that would help him out a lot back in the day. And you know, he got the height, he got the reach, and he got the power, and so I think that would really help him a lot. And I think Canelo too. I think you know, he, you know, a couple of years ago, I would say that Canelo could fight in any era. But the one today, no. But
You think he's slowing down, or?
Oh, absolutely. I think age affects certain people in certain ways. And, you know, and I looked at his fight against Bivol, and he just seems to me to slow down a little bit. And so I think in the next fight, we're going to really see what Ryder is going to bring to the table. But, I don't know Ryder as well as I do know of any other his opponents, but Ryder, I know he beat Danny Jacobs, but he beat old Danny Jacobs. And so I'm not sure what else he can bring to the table. But if he can take Canelo's punches, then he has a good chance. But I don't know because I haven't really seen him fight but the Danny Jacobs fight. So other than that, I don't know anything else about him. But let me see. Oh, Pivot, he can fight in any era.
Yeah.
This guy, he is so good. I mean, this guy is so good. I mean, he was born to be a fighter. But the only thing that I would say about him is, he's the light heavyweight champion of the world. But if they do something crazy and try to go down to 168 to fight Canelo, that's, he don't need that,
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Ronnie,
sure.
always a pleasure to talk to you. Always learn when we talk to you. Thanks for taking the time. Hope to have you on again soon.
Oh, no problem. Absolutely. Anytime.
Thanks, Ronnie. We appreciate it. All the best. We'll see you soon.
Okay. You guys take care.
Gervonta Tank Davis. King Ryan Garcia.
The power of Davis. The flash, the hand speed.
Two undefeated stars. Two journeys. One mega fight to make history.
It's over! That crowd had me put it on my head. It doesn't get any better than this.
Gervonta Davis versus Ryan Garcia. Saturday, April 22nd. Live on pay-per-view.
It's time for Mike and I to go toe-to-toe. This week's topic, the 5 greatest upsets in PBC history. This took a lot of work, Mike. Trying to figure out which ones I wanted to choose. Lots of good options here. We're going to go in chronological order. Mike, the floor is yours.
Real quick, I just want to preface this by saying that we talked very briefly about this before off the podcast, and I have a feeling we're going to have different choices. So I'm really curious to see who you choose. So the earliest one on mine was from December 2018 in Brooklyn. Tony Harrison, unanimous decision 12 over Jermall Charlo. Charlo was already showing signs of being a dominating fighter at that point. He was already the WBC title holder and had some good victories under his belt, including Gabe Rosado, Vanes Martirosyan, Erickson Lubin, and Austin Trout in his previous fight. He looked like he was on his way to stardom, and in retrospect, he was. Harrison was a respected technician, but Jarrett Hurd had taken him out the previous year, and he struggled to beat Ishe Smith in his previous fight. So that's why the result was so stunning. Harrison turned in the performance of his career, using every ounce of his ability to outbox Charlo and win a unanimous decision and the title. It was mostly downhill for Harrison after that. He was 1-2-1 in his last 4 fights, but he'll always have that great moment, against Charlo.
Yeah, sure. I think that is one of the bigger upsets in PBC history. However, I thought Charlo edged it, so I couldn't bring myself to put it on
It's
my
an interesting
list.
take. Yeah.
Now, my number 5, or my earliest one, I should say, is Andres Fundora versus someone named Joe Smith Jr. June 18th, 2016, Fundora fighting in the Polish heavy town of Chicago where he resided, and he was a huge favorite going in. He had beaten Nathan Cleverly, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., Glenn Johnson, an older Glenn Johnson, but still Glenn Johnson, and he was supposedly getting a soft touch in the unknown full-time construction worker named Joe Smith. This looked like it was going to be an early night, and it was. As Smith shocked the boxing world by blasting Fundora out of there in one round. I mean, who knew that Smith's right hand would then carry him to world title glory, knocking Bernard Hopkins out of the ring, or that he'd be among the best light heavyweights in the world? Very few thought that, if any, heading into that night against Fundora, and that's why this fight makes the list.
You know what? That's a really good call. Yeah, I remember Fundora was pretty respected. I remember when he beat Chavez. Afterward, people were saying Chavez should just never have fought that guy. He's too good. And I understand why people didn't give Smith, that much of a chance, because even when he was at his peak, he wasn't that great of a boxer. As you said, he sort of relied on his power. But the dude could knock out a heavyweight if he landed the right punch.
And
so maybe that's what they just overlooked, the Fundora people, because when he landed that shot, man, it was just over for Fundora. So very good call.
Yeah, let's move on to number 4. I'll kick this one off this time. My number 4 took place on January 13, 2019. I remember it like yesterday on FS1. Jose Uzcategui versus Caleb Plant. Uzcategui, the IBF champ and the feared 168-pounder at that time, taking on the unbeaten but untested Plant. Uzcategui was riding high. He had just knocked out Andre Durrell in a very, very impressive performance, and few, if anyone, picked Plant to win this fight. Well, fight fans got the shock of their life, as it was Plant who dropped Uzcategui twice, outboxed him throughout, and also showed grit in surviving a late round surge to win a 12-round unanimous decision and become the new champion.
That's another good one. You know what? I have to confess that I don't remember what I was thinking about before that fight, but I remember. I think I gave. I'm not saying I predicted that Plant would win the fight, but I think I gave Plant a good chance to win that fight. Because as I'm watching it, I don't remember being shocked at what I was seeing. It was a really good performance, and I'm going, wow, this guy is really good. But I don't remember being that surprised. But yeah, I guess I can go back and look at the odds. And see that
Uzcategui was ranked 3rd by Ring Magazine at the time in the division, and Plant wasn't ranked at all.
Well, there you go.
It's interesting to see how far he's come along, though. Since then, who do you have for your number 4?
So my next one chronologically is from May 2019, Fairfax, Virginia. Julian Williams, unanimous decision, 12 over Jarrett Hurd. I have to admit that I didn't think anyone was going to beat Hurd at that time. He seemed to be just so physically superior, physically stronger than everyone else. And he was delivering results, including successive victories over Tony Harrison, Austin Trout, Arislan Lara in his previous 4 fights. Williams was a skillful, experienced boxer with a good track record himself. For example, he beat Ishe Smith and Nathaniel Gallimore after he was stopped by Jermall Charlo in 2016. But I didn't give Williams much of a chance to beat Hurd. As I said, I didn't think anybody could beat him. And then he just did it. He had a great night that night, easily outboxing Hurd and seemingly exposing Hurd's limitations, if you will. We saw how good Williams could be in that fight. Like Tony Harrison, though, that was his last hurrah. He lost his next 2 fights and has sort of become an afterthought.
Yeah, you know what? I should have seen it coming, because Julian Williams was so good. I remember his fight against Jermall Charlo, and he looked great. Yes, he did get stopped midway through the fight, but that was a really, really good fight for those that remember. Now, that said, I'm with you. Hurd, on the other hand, was riding so high. He just looked unstoppable. For goodness sake, he had just beaten Arislan Lara. Tony Harrison, a slew of good fighters. He was unbeaten, unified world champion, fighting at home. Yeah, I didn't foresee that coming at all. That fight did not make my list, but I certainly respect it. Let's go to number 3. Who you got?
Okay, so number 3. I don't know, some people might think it's a bit of a reach. July 2019, Las Vegas. Manny Pacquiao, split decision 12 over Keith Thurman. So I know we're talking about Manny Pacquiao here, and that Thurman, wasn't a huge favorite in that fight. He was favored, but not by that much. Also Thurman was coming back from some nagging injuries. Still, in spite of all of the above, I personally, probably stupidly, didn't give Pacquiao much of a chance in that fight. He looked pretty good against Adrian Broner in his previous fight, but he was 40 when he took on Thurman. So I thought even a Thurman at 80, 85% would be able to out-hustle and beat this version of Pacquiao. Well, I was, as we all know, I was dead wrong. Pacquiao gave an inspired performance, putting Thurman down in the opening round and holding off a rally from Thurman to win a split decision and the WBA title. That turned out to be Pacquiao's, last great performance. He lost his title to Yordenis Ugas in his next fight, and then he retired.
Yeah, they say every great fighter has that one last great performance, and I mean that was it. I mean, for Pacquiao, that watching that fight and seeing how crafty he was and what a veteran he was and how he, outsmarted Keith Thurman in that fight. I was so impressed with Pacquiao that night, and just one of those great moments. I don't know if we appreciate the magnitude of that victory yet. That was really, really impressive, given the stage he was at in his career and given who Thurman was up to that point. My number 3 took place on August 3rd, 2019 at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. Jean Pascal versus Marcus Brown. Brown at the time was a big favorite. He was coming off an impressive decision win over Badu Jack. Pascal, on the other hand, was 2-2 in his last 4 bouts, including a one-sided loss to Dimitri Bivol going into this encounter. But this was one fascinating match. Brown outboxed Pascal, much of the way. Yet it seemed like every 2 rounds, Pascal was knocking him down. Well, I think he knocked him out early in the fight and twice in the 7th, scored 3 knockdowns in total in 8 rounds. And in that 8th round, an accidental butt caused a cut over Pascal's left eye. It went to the cards where, because of those 3 knockdowns, despite being outboxed, he was slightly ahead. And just like that, Pascal was a player among the top 175 pounders again.
You did a good job on this list. Yeah, I remember being really surprised at that result. I thought Pascal, I respected Pascal for, when he was at his peak, but I thought he was done. You said he'd suffered a couple losses, and I had a lot of respect for Brown. I still do. He's a good boxer. So I was like, I'm watching that fight, and then after I'm like, whoa. I remember thinking after the fight, I think Pascal is just better than I realized he is. I think that he's got a pretty strong resume. He's had a really good career. He really has over a long period.
Yeah, seriously, he's fought a lot of good guys, a lot of top guys. People forget he started out as a super middleweight. Was a top super middleweight, lost to Carl Froch. Another impressive, underrated win for Carl Froch, by the way, beating Pascal at 168. But yeah, what a career he's had. Did you say your number 3? I believe you did, right?
Yeah. If you want to lead off
I'll go with number 2.
One. Yeah.
For me, January 18, 2020, Jason Rosario, Julian Williams. This was in Williams' native Philadelphia. I just didn't see this one coming. We spoke about Williams versus Hurd, and Williams had looked so brilliant in upsetting Hurd, capturing the unified 154-pound titles. Not to mention, he was always a good fighter. While Rosario had never quite reached that level, he had been stopped by Nathaniel Gallimore a couple of years back. But you know what? There is no doubt I severely underestimated him, especially when you consider the win streak that Rosario was on and the tremendous power he had shown throughout his career. Well, after a couple rounds, he started to put the pressure on Williams. It was a cut over Williams' eye. And then in that 5th round, a huge counter left hook hurt Williams, and he never recovered. Rosario pounced, beat Williams down, putting him away in that 5th round for what is certainly one of the biggest upsets in PBC history.
Yep, that's why it's my next one chronologically. So we do have one the same, at least one the same. I don't know what your top one is, what your last one is. So you know what, Rosario had beaten some good guys. Justin Deloach, Jamonte Clark, and a few other guys on that level. But Julian Williams, that was like a whole different level. At least that's what I was thinking at the time.
Yeah.
I really thought Williams was going to roll over this guy, who was obviously obscure. He'd been fighting mostly in the Dominican Republic, but man, Rosario gave the performance of his career, dominated, stopping Williams in 5 rounds. It was like Williams didn't even know what hit him.
Yeah. That was a shocker for sure. I mean, especially in Williams' hometown. I was not expecting that at all. Shall we go to number 1? Who you got?
So the most recent one on my list was Hector Luis Garcia, unanimous decision 12 over Chris Colbert. In retrospect, this is another one that doesn't seem as if it should have been such a surprising upset. It was at the time, though, at least in my opinion, in my mind. Colbert was a fast rising star, skillful, quick, super athletic, 130-pounder. He seemed destined to be a major player in the sport from my perspective. And we didn't really have a good handle on Garcia at that time. He was a 2016 Olympian from his native Dominican Republic, and obviously the guy had ability, but he hadn't beaten a single opponent of note, really. I mean, some pretty good guys, but nobody of note, if you will. And he took the fight on 3 weeks' notice. So this was a big challenge for him, or so it seemed. To say he met the challenge is an understatement. He just walked down Colbert and beat him up, en route to winning a wide unanimous decision, and just instantaneously becoming an important fighter. He went on to outpoint Roger Gutierrez to win a major title before losing to Tank Davis at 135, but he still has the 130-pound title, so he remains a top guy. That all started with the Colbert fight.
Yeah, and that was a respectable performance against Gervonta Davis as well. I think we saw that Hector Luis Garcia really, truly is a very good fighter. And that fight certainly was a shock to me as well, as I had expected a lot from Colbert. At some points, he looked like a young Mayweather. So that definitely stunned me. My number one took place on January 22nd, 2002. Boxing's then longest reigning champion, WBC World Featherweight Champ, Gary Russell Jr. taking on the unbeaten Mark Magsayo in Atlantic City. Look, going in, Russell seemed to have nearly every advantage, except for maybe, youth and power. Yet he suffered an injury to his shoulder during that fight. Some say even before heading into that fight. But whatever the case was, his output was severely limited. Magsayo was just busier. He wasn't even necessarily effective, but that activity proved to be enough for him to become the new champion via 12-round majority decision in a fight, many believed could have gone the other way.
Yeah, that's a good call. Like, technically, that's a good call, but I wouldn't have included that on my list because of the injury. I'm sort of taking his word for it that he was a one-handed fight, fighting, and he still almost won the fight. I think if they fought again, that Russell would handle him. But yeah, you're right. From a technical standpoint, from a wins and losses, that was an enormous upset. In some ways, that might be the biggest one we've listed here.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. Especially when you consider how long Russell had been champion, how respected he was as a champion, and the skills that he had shown during his reign. Yeah, certainly it was a huge upset.
So I wanted to, before we sign off, I wanted to mention that I noticed a pattern with the guys that I chose, the guys who delivered the upsets. They all kind of, I don't know, maybe this is an exaggeration, but they all kind of fell apart after their upset victories. Harrison, 4 of the 5, the guys that I picked, lost in their next fight. Only Hector Luis Garcia won. He beat Roger Gutierrez.
Right.
And they had a combined record. They have a combined record of 6-8-1 after their upset.
Wow.
Yeah, Harrison was, as I mentioned, was 1-2-1. Garcia 1-1 with the loss to Tank. Williams 1-2, Pacquiao 0-1, and Rosario 3-3. And the three victories were just against journeymen in the Dominican Republic.
Right.
So I thought it was really interesting. These guys had these enormous wins, and then it was pretty much downhill after that.
Yeah, I have a sort of a similar pattern, except when you look at obviously what Caleb Plant did
And Smith.
And Joe Smith, following their big victory. So, but they seem to sort of be outliers when you look at the rest of the guys on the list. So maybe you're onto something there. I'll be paying very close attention to that going forward. Now, that's going to do it for this week's show. We want to thank Ronnie Shields for joining us. And of course, we want to thank you for tuning in. Be sure to check us out next week for more boxing talk, more interviews right here on the PBC Podcast.